coming back for season 2, what felt like the biggest change?
Raven.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Raven, our Lord and Savior. Sorry. Yeah, having Raven on board really brought in a fresh lease of life into the show. You brought in a lot of new people as well, like Clayton, our DP as well. You had a hand in bringing those on. New composer, writers.
Also, a bunch of writers that were new.
You're both new to this season of Iron Fist.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. What was it like to join the Iron Fist family?
Well, for me, having been on 3 other Marvel shows, or 2 other Marvel shows, but 3 other seasons, it was, you go in with a certain amount of trepidation. Will they know how to write for Misty? Will they respect what Cheo has created and really enriched? And Raven is like a dream. Cheo is amazing as a showrunner, and Raven is equally as awesome because they really are like nerds of the comic books, and they are fans of the characters, and so they wanted to make the best Misty possible, but then they also let me put my input in there and say, like, she wouldn't do that, she would do that. And so that was great.
I come to this show as a giant fan of the comic books. I mean, I'm a big comic book nerd, and I also I grew up in New York and lived there for most of my life, so it was really important to me that we tell a real Iron Fist story and that we really are true to these characters. And at the same time, I really wanted to bring the show sort of into the streets of New York.
And Alice, you're a very new character to this season.
Brand spanking.
Brand spanking new. What can you tell me about she's a bit of a legacy character in the comics.
Yeah, Typhoid Mary. So, obviously she's wonderfully explained in the comics. And I read all the comics because Raven is a real nerd and has them all and, shared them with me. And I was grateful to have his guidance. As you say, he is amazing. But, Typhoid Mary's a complex woman. She hates men in the comics and she likes to kill them. And, that was fun and rich. There was also the multiple personalities, which was, for me as an actor, really interesting to play because she goes from being an innocent kind of virginal woman to having someone that pops out to protect that's another character who's violent, and someone who comes out to protect that, she's even more violent. So I was steeped in violence and anger for 5 months. So it was definitely transformative to play.
I was going to say, seems like fun.
Wasn't
Great
its own
to
way,
see her at the crafty table.
Yeah, I know, it wasn't.
You're like, can I get it?
It wasn't. It was like that, yeah. So they put up with me, so thanks.
Oh,
It's true, though. I didn't speak to anyone.
Really?
No, she didn't.
No, I didn't.
But that was, to me, it worked. I know that what is going to come across on screen is going to be something very rich that the audience is going to love. And I think that she did a phenomenal job of taking the idea of a character and truly embodying it in a way that doesn't feel like a put on. I think that if you have to deal with characters with multiple personalities, it can veer towards the absurd in less capable hands. And so I think that she did a great job.
Thanks, darling. Thank you. I didn't talk to anyone, so that's nice of you to say.
Well, we're talking now.
Yeah, we've been speaking all this time. And but it was like that. It was like that, yeah.
Well, I'm curious too because season 1 of Iron Fist dealt with some mental health subplot. And your character in season 2, she is suffering from mental health issues, and to see that depicted on screen is something that we still don't see all that often, which I think is why she gets a lot of comparisons to maybe Harley Quinn and what over in the DC universe, and someone who is unpredictable and mentally unhinged. So what was it like to sort of inhabit that and to have that responsibility of that particular representation on television?
Yeah, mental health is the subject of the day, and I'm not sure any of us are lucky enough to be completely mentally sane. Mental sanity is like a society's construct so that we can all function together, but we all go to bed with our minds and we all know what they do to us. Insomnia is your baseline, and then it goes from there, and your mind plays tricks on you. So I just kind of swam in that deep ocean for a while and really let myself think the thoughts that mindfulness and meditation and all of those things tell you not to do, and embraced all the disorder in my mind, and enjoyed that and felt that pain and lived that, and I'm still standing, but it was a real thing, and mental health is a real thing, and I like Marvel for being able to hinge these issues Misty doesn't have an arm. That's like a massive physical ailment. And so for Marvel to be able to hinge these issues on this construct they have of exploded powers and, you know, exploded weaknesses and make them so big that like they feel to us inside.
Danny's in a really interesting position this season.
he
I think Matt Murdock's death really affected him. So when we find him in season 2, he's a little darker, I think. How would you describe where he is?
So in the second season, he's protecting the streets. He's gone full vigilante mode. He's moved in with Colleen, and so he's got this renewed sense of purpose at the beginning of season 2, and he's trying to balance a kind of like a home life with his girlfriend, trying to, you know, keep a relationship stable and going, and also try and go out every night and protect the streets. And as you can imagine, that probably has some tensions on the relationship and his own well-being in life.
Simone Missick joins this season I was so excited to hear this because obviously that relationship between Misty and Colleen is so special to me, and I know a lot of other fans. Tell me a little bit about what we can expect. I know, you know, Daughters of the Dragon. I would love to see that actually happen. So what can we expect from those two?
Simone's amazing for starters. I'm the biggest Misty Knight fan, I think that their relationship is really cool because they bring out a side to each other that you don't get to see otherwise. Like, you get to see Colleen's sense of humor, I think, with Misty, and Simone and I riff off each other really well. And I remember one day we were filming a scene in a car, and we just kept improvising. The director was like, "Stop doing that!" but we feed off each other so well. So I think that's what people are gonna really get from Misty and Colleen this season.
And some badass fight sequences.
And there are definitely a couple badass fight sequences.
You're a big fan, I'm assuming.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
They're awesome. I love those girls. Yeah.
It's a friendship that I think everyone takes for granted, you know, the concept of the Daughters of the Dragon. And so everyone is like, oh, they're best friends. And in the reality of these shows, they really don't know each other. So they go through this traumatic event at the end of The Defenders, and Colleen partially feels responsible, and Misty feels bereft at having lost an arm. And then you see in Luke season 2, Colleen comes in and kind of helps Misty to pick herself up off the ground and decide, is she going to just give up on herself and on life, or is she going to move on? And so when we get to Iron Fist season 2, it's that same relationship, but on the reverse. Colleen is in a place where she's not really sure what she's going to do. Is she ready to put the katana down forever? And how does her life fit with Danny and with cohabitating? And, you know, Misty shows up to say, well, who do you want to be? And it's a beautiful thing to see, because they're not just two girlfriends sitting on the couch drinking wine and reading magazines. Like, they don't bullshit each other. And so you just get to see this great dynamic of two strong women who have the ability to be vulnerable with one another, but they don't live in that vulnerability.
And I love the physical nature of that relationship too, like the physicality that they both bring.
How many girlfriends can you just go out and whoop somebody's ass in a bar with?
What a dream.
I mean,
I mean, it sounds like maybe you two will
I think
start
we
that
I
project.
think we should.
Yeah, I think we could.
Yeah, I think you're at that level now. Tonight, if we hear any tweets
Yes.
or see any news reports,
Exactly. It's gonna be like the
It's us.
cast of Iron Fist season 2 got into a bar brawl in downtown San Diego.
what could we actually expect? Maybe somewhere down the line, the Daughters of the Dragon.
Fingers
Who
crossed.
knows?
As
That'd be
fans,
cool.
look, as fans of the characters and the pairing, I mean, it's something that I mean, gosh, wouldn't that be awesome? You know, I think we all feel the same way. Like, that would be awesome.
I want to talk specifically about working with Clayton Barber. Obviously, coming from Black Panther, very cool. Coming from Creed, awesome. What was that experience like? How different was it from maybe the first season?
Clayton is a true professional. He felt like a coach more than anything. Very supportive, but very relentless in his vision. I loved working with him. I loved working with the team that he brought on board as well. I just loved his work ethic, his style, but really his support and his belief in all of us. You know, Clayton was one of these guys, he's a perfectionist, and he wouldn't let us go to set unless he thought the fights were well rehearsed. And we all had such a great camaraderie together that we'd even go in on the weekends. You know, we go in at the weekends and rehearse with each other in the dojo to make sure that the fights are looking the best they can look. So then we turn up on Monday, they're ready to be shot, and they're going to look fantastic. And I think having Clayton and having his supportive energy on this season allowed us to really throw ourselves into it 100%.
Do you feel like you had a better grasp on the artistry of it and the physicality because you had, it's second season coming in?
Well, hey, look, practice is practice is practice is practice. The more you practice something, the more you do it, the better you get. And that's just like the law of nature, right?
Yeah. So you felt more badass this season?
I mean, I've always felt badass, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, for sure, I was letting it loose this season. Yeah, there was no holding back, for sure.
We each had very different experiences with Clayton. I think that, Clayton going into, and obviously you can speak to it better, but going into it with the idea of Typhoid Mary, he's, like, okay, we're going to push you to your physical limit. And I feel like with Misty, he's like, I really wish you did stunts. And I'm like, did you not watch any of season 2 of Luke? So I don't know what happened. Did he not do his homework? But it wasn't until he had thrown me into 7 walls that he finally looked at something and went, oh, I didn't know that you could do some fighting. And I'm like, yeah, jackass, I can do some fighting. And so I have this really great fight towards the end of the season, which was so dynamic. And it pushed me to a place that, I wish I had gotten the opportunity to do episode after episode after episode like you did. But I think that his passion for
We could have been in
making
hospital
everyone,
together.
we really could have. But he has a passion for making everyone look great and for pushing them to do their own stunts, which is rare. So often stunt coordinators go, okay, now let's get the stunties in, let's get the doubles in. And Clayton really wanted for us to be able to do our own stunts. 90% of it if we could. So what was your experience?
Well, it was it was exactly as she said, it was massively challenging. He was a dark overlord. He ran my life. I did what he said. It was massive discipline and great reward. Like, that does lead somewhere. And that is a message I want to get across. Like, I wasn't born fighting. I definitely have violence inside, but I wasn't born fighting. And Clayton found it, told me how to make friends with my violence, enjoy it, change my relationship with pain, push myself further. And then by the end, I could do a full fight on screen, which is significant for me.
Yeah. Did I hear you say you ended up in the hospital?
I did. I ended up in hospital.
She did.
What'd you do?
Fighting, to quote Clayton, is like a dance, like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. And so we did our own, and they were doing all the angles, and we had a fight we had a fight, and I put one foot wrong, and one of my friends put their foot wrong, and made contact, and I had a bone contusion in my left foot, and spent the night in NYC Langone. Crying, the AD carried me in there, so we were pretty good friends after that.
Yeah.
Nick,
Well, now
ZTR.
Yeah, now you're bonded forever, though. That's family.
Yeah, that is. He
Yes.
definitely knew me really well.
Misty in Iron Fist, and we've seen her kick ass in Luke Cage, and we saw her in Defenders. She didn't get quite as, her hands quite as dirty, but some bad things happened to her.
Yeah.
But do you change your fight style at all to sort of match sort of Iron Fist and Colleen and?
Good question.
What is interesting about being a good guy within the Marvel Universe is that you don't often get to kill people. So you have this character who is known for this bionic arm and this gun, and she's a detective and she has a gun, and yet can you kill someone? The answer is no. So the stunt team would often have to figure out ways to get me to lose my gun so that I could fight. But then, especially having Clayton and the stunt team from Luke Cage season 2 was completely different. So it's a different fighting style. Misty on Luke was much more boxing. And you see that, you see her in the boxing ring. And in Iron Fist season 2, it's a little bit more of the kung fu style that Clayton is a fan of. And so when you see this fight between the Daughters of the Dragon and another set of people, I'm not going to spoil that, it's definitely Clayton's style coming through, and it's exciting. It's different to see.
Look, in the dramatic scenes as well, everyone really committed, and I think and absolutely in the fight stuff as well. I was talking about it with Jessica before, but she gets as a fight progresses, where everyone else is getting tired. You see people whose whole job it is to point a camera, and it's a lot of work, but also Jessica's out there literally throwing herself at a wall and she just gets more and more and more excited and amped, and it's kind of a beautiful thing to watch. She gets amped, and it's and she gets into I think the whole group, and there was moments where we would finish filming a fight sequence, and everyone in the whole crew would just clap, right? Like everyone
Yeah,
would be
it was
like,
really sweet.
It was
They were so
because it was
supportive.
just so impressive. We're like these people. It's not. I mean, we have stunt doubles for certain moments, but for the most part, that's our people out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
Actors
literally
fighting
throwing
actors.
themselves,
Yeah.
at this.
Wow. Jessica sounds like a real life superhero.
Aw, thank you, I am.
Amazing. I want to talk about the villain this season because it's someone that we saw in the first season. Davos is back.
Yes.
He's the bad guy now. Tell me how that affects Danny because obviously that was his best friend.
Right. Well, first of all, Sasha, who plays Davos, is one of the nicest, most hardworking actors you will ever get to work with or meet. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah,
and
completely.
He just shines in this role, truly shines in this role. Maybe, Raven, you could speak about more the relationship of the characters.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We don't really call our Marvel, we don't call them villains in the Marvel universe. We call them antagonists, right? And our goal really is, with the best, for us, the best sort of antagonist is one who you understand where they're coming from to a point where you go, wow, okay, I get why emotionally they're doing this. And maybe there's even a version of, in their mind, you can see why they're right. You know, like Magneto's a great example of a character that you kind of love because you understand them. So I think, a lot of the Davos relationship that's really great about the characters, I think that people are going to they're really going to like what he did with it because you understand why he's doing what he's doing emotionally, as well as him being badass and incredible.
And at the heart of it, they're brothers.
Yeah.
Danny and Davos are brothers, and they grow up together, and they care about each other, and they love each other. But as you'll see in the flashbacks to Kunlun, things go off, and life sends them on two different paths. And this season is about them coming back together and trying to, figure it out. It's really interesting to play that dynamic between a brother and brother.
Also, they're like two sides of the same sword, right?
Right, yin and yang.
But what about Typho Berry? Like, where does she operate in this universe? Is she a full antagonist? Is she somewhere in between? What can you tell me?
Certainly in 2018, being good is a subjective situation. I think that it obviously will remain to be seen, but she does have multiple personalities, so she probably has multiple intentions.
That was a good answer.
That was really great.
It was.
I was moved.
I was too.
Personally.
Should I run away now?
Yeah. Returning to Kunlun, I mean, do we spend a little bit more time there this season?
We spent some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think
some time
that, again, we always try to, if we're going to go back to do something like that, like to go to Kunlun, we wanted to do it for a strong reason. And I think in a story in which you're telling a story about these two brothers and their conflict, it's necessary to understand where they came from. So, yeah, in order to build that emotional story, we spent a little time there.
Yeah. I'm curious from your perspective, too, like, did you listen to any of the reaction or chatter from season 1, and how did that drive the storytelling for season 2, or did it drive the storytelling at all?
Well, I was on another show. I wasn't working on it in season 1, so I was reading a lot of comic books, and kind of when the job sort of was out there, and I knew it was out there, I was so jazzed about it. So, and also I was really excited to sort of dive into this interesting world and with these great actors and these great characters. So to me, it was more about like, what is the Iron Fist story that I want to tell, that I've wanted to tell since I was like 12 years old, And so I sort of came at it with that, and then I think we had a lot of conversations about sort of where we left the characters and where we sort of wanted them to go, and we sort of built from there.
Yeah, and then you guys can obviously feel that enthusiasm.
Totally. I mean, look, Raven is a fanboy 101. The passion that Raven brings onto this show just trickles down into all of us. And we all have the passion for the characters in the show as well. I think everyone this season wanted to come back giving 110% of their energy, and we did. And I think from some of the clips that we saw yesterday at the panel, it really it shows.
Yeah.
It really shows.
It's very...